This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Here on the iRacing Esports Network for the final time in 2019, we get ready for some fantastic Australia-New Zealand GTE racing. This is the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia, the 11th and final round from Silverstone in the UK. My name's Reece Gardner, and joining me in the commentary box tonight, David Haynes. David, it's the end of a long and arduous season for these guys. Alexander Bird has effectively already wrapped up the title. He just needs to be classified at this race in order to seal the championship. But we are at a fantastic track for this finale. Silverstone in the UK, fast, flowing, and historic. I'm looking forward to this 45-minute one.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. This is a circuit that I very much enjoy. We saw some great racing here in touring cars on SimSpeed TV and the iRacing Esports Network not long ago. So I find that this new layout that we have on iRacing, not only does it look very good, it's very up to date. It's also making some great racing in a great variety of cars. It's got everything between that very high speed and technical, Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel Curve section, but also some slower corners. We'll see that track map here, Reece.
Yes, indeed. So this is a guide to Silverstone. It's a 271 meter run to turn one, but that turn, Abbey, extremely fast. And Abbey Farm, Village Loop and Aintree, effectively the entire first sector. That's going to be a bit of a danger zone on lap one, but all around the circuit, there's a lot of passing zones. Despite the quickness of a lot of these corners, you can actually see that Cops, the old first corner before the Beckett's S's, that is a potential passing zone in fifth gear. And we always like to see how slipstream battles eventuate at Stowe, down at Vale and Club, not to mention Brooklands and Luffield. That is an interesting corner complex that really catches people out on this new layout.
Yeah, for sure. All of those are not just highlighted in green for no reason. I think we're going to see passing at all of those places around this circuit. And if you're the car in front trying to defend, you've got to have your wits about you, because there are several places around the lap someone could sneak a move on you. Like you say, 45-minute race today. Pit stop that's going to be required. What's happening right now is a little bit of driver warm-up. Qualifying has already happened. So we are ticking down that clock towards this exciting race.
Yes, indeed. And you can see that there is a 50% fuel tank restriction. There's likely going to be one stop for everyone throughout the field, and it'll work out to about 22, 23 laps if the entire race goes green, which we know from the past in this series is always the chance of a safety car, so any chance that that distance could be modified. And it is 44 degrees out there on the surface of Silverstone Circuit. So this newer layout, much smoother tarmac than the old circa 2011 layout that iRacing initially had. With these hot temperatures, it's already low grip, but it's going to be absolutely like ice out there.
Yeah, indeed. So the tyre drop-off is something we might have to have a look at. Drivers who push too hard too early might find themselves just sliding around a little bit later in the race. You say a smooth surface. It's not quite an ice skating rink, but it certainly could get like that. We're just seeing John Peasnick, who's had a couple of great runs in this series. He's going through the Beckett's section there. It's quite easy to cut too much out of some of those chicanes and catch a slow down penalty. So in the race, the drivers are really going to have to make sure they stay within the bounds of play through there. We've seen drivers get caught out there, and if it's on the first lap, for example, you can lose a lot of positions from a little mistake like that, just cutting the circuit a little bit too fine.
Yes, indeed. It's very easy to do around this layout of Silverstone. There's a lot of inviting green painted tarmac and AstroTurf in some cases that they do seem very inviting. You want to use them, maximize your line, but iRacing's automated penalty system will ping you if you decide to take too many liberties. And there is our championship leader and champion-elect, Alexander Bird, making his way through the final couple of corners here at Silverstone as practice comes to an end. Checkered flag is out. And that is the last opportunity the drivers will get to have a practice before this starting grid, thanks to our major sponsor, Epiroc.
I appreciate that there's diversity in the workforce, and Australia is becoming a prominent influence in this area with 4 females on the management team. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. As the cars line up on the grid, here is the order that they will start in for the final round of Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. Alex Bird and John Peasnick make it a Trick and JPR front row. Trent Thomas and Danny Davison taking up row 2 and 3rd and 4th. Michael Healy and Ross Rizzo and All Trick Simsports row 3. Trick, of course, one of the teams to beat in this series. Brad Ratu and Philip Worley rounding out the top 8 as they start pulling away.
Next section of your grid, Cameron Dance there in 9th, Martin Silvassi in 10th, Ryan Jerrick 11th, sharing row 6th with Scott Solosky. Richard Hunter and Jackson Walls side by side there, and 15th and 16th is going to be Simon Mazzomo and Adam Briggs. Pace car already in.
Yes, indeed. Just go over the last couple of sections of the grid here on your screen as we psych ourselves up for the final round. Bird is already away out of club. So no double file start specifically for this. They will have sorted themselves out mostly by the time they gotten through the last couple of corners. And already we're seeing a couple of cars go wide. That's Healy and Ratu having some issues there. Ross Rizzo going slow for some reason.
He's plummeting down the timing screen, down 7 spots now already. I don't know if he cut part of the course, if he's got a technical problem. He looks to be up to speed in racing now, but he has dropped a long way down the order from where he was on the grid.
Yeah, that's no good for him. Philip Worley, meanwhile, we're right on board with him coming down the Wellington Straight versus Cam Dance on the inside. This is for 8th and 9th, 7th and 8th rather, and you can see just how good for racing that section of Brooklands and Luffield is. Nice and wide, multiple lines available, and you can go side by side all the way through that section.
So Dance is up 1 spot. He's sizing up Worley again, coming towards that old first corner of Cox. He's not going to be close enough, but this is a tough corner at high speed where you just sort of a little bit of brake pedal, maybe one downshift, tip it in. If your car's not balanced through there, you're going to really struggle. We've seen some drivers struggle with the curbing on the exit there, which can be rather violent indeed.
Yes, that is what you got to look out for. Occasionally violent curbs. Cam Dance lunging into the corners, using the front end of his Porsche as much as possible. And who knows, that might come back to bite him later on, considering the high temperature that we have on the track at the moment. He is having to drive a bit defensively here. Oh no, Daniel Misdale, it looks like, in the wall. Now, where on track is that? That's looks to be somewhere down the Hangar Straight. So, a bit of an incident coming out of the S's there for Daniel Misdale. Big shame for DPR. Martin Silvassi, meanwhile, through the final chicane. He is the man chasing down Cameron Dance at the moment. Ryan Jerrick right on his tail as we come across to start lap 2. And already we're coming up on 42 minutes to go. Absolutely flying by here.
Yeah, Dance has gone from being the hunter to bit of the hunted here, taking a big sweeping line through turn 3 there. But looking to the inside, there's just not going to be room there for Martin Silvassi, but he is looking this way, that way. Dance is under a bit of pressure now. Silvassi trying to size up where he can make an overtake. Not shy about thinking about some of these places, like a turn 3 there, which is a little unconventional through the loop.
Yeah, well, going through the loop, especially later on in the race, it's where you'll see some desperate moves being made. But obviously not this early. Wouldn't be very good for the longevity of your race. But Alexander Bird is doing everything right up the front at the moment. Himself and Peasnick with a sizable gap to third place, Trent Thomas. But Danny Davison in fourth place. He is suffering a huge amount of pressure here from Michael Healy and his teammate Brad Ratu. 3 BMWs all in a row coming through the Beckett's S's. It's fantastic to see how these guys tackle those incredibly fast corners. This is a very iconic circuit for very good reason, especially the slipstream down the hanger straight.
Problems for Solowski. A couple of drivers have come on through. That looks like a slow down penalty. He might have just been too aggressive across the curbs, but further up, Davison's gone wide, and now Healy has a monster of a run towards Vale. You can overtake here, but Davison is trying to cover.
Yeah, he covered it pretty well there, but he's compromised his exit. He's going to back these guys all up into each other now. You can see the DPR Porsche of Philip Worley trying to make its case here, and Brad Ratu slightly offline as a result of that backing up there by Danny Davison. Of course, Davison did what he needed to do there. Silvassi is looking very aggressive, and this is another potential overtaking spot. Michael Healy taking full advantage of that. He is fully through. Bradley Ratu trying around the outside of his teammate, but nothing's going to happen for the time being. Oh, have a look at the exit there that Ratu's got. He's going to sweep by his teammate here. And is that Philip Worley trying to make it 3 wide on the run down to Brooklands? This is fantastic of Worley! Too late on the brakes! And off goes Brad Ratu. That is a huge shame for the Exto Gaming guys.
Yeah, 3 wide was always going to be a little bit sketchy there, and unfortunately I think Worley's become just unsighted in the middle there, and a bit of contact, and just sent that driver spinning. You can see from another angle here, a lot going on. Philip Worley aiming for what I'm going to call the reverse Zonta here, and he's just then tried to switch it back to the inside, and in doing so made contact there. So it was a bold move to try and switch back to the inside. It hasn't quite worked out, and that's triggered a bit of a chain reaction behind as well. We saw one of the trick cars avoiding action lose a lot of time as well.
Oh, yeah, and that's the incident from another angle, and it was Silvassi who got caught up in that. It was contact with Davison, who was obviously going slow due to the incident in front of him, and Silvassi's had to do a 360 and get it back onto the circuit. And it just goes to show how much one touch can severely affect many other drivers' races. So I think Philip Worley may have a bit of a cloud over his head at the moment. Race control might be looking at that. It is under review by race control, that incident, so we'll get a decision on that pretty soon. Meanwhile, Philip Worley has got Cameron Dance to worry about as he now occupies the last position in the top 5.
Yep, so 2 Porsches battling here. They've got a bit of clean air for themselves now because of those cars behind dropping back a little bit, and that collective group losing a bit of time to the car in front. Some of the racing starting to spread out up the front, but then deeper in the field, it's still all a train, lots to play for as well. Some of those drivers deeper in the order might be thinking about trying to save just a little bit of fuel, but if you're one of the drivers further up the road, you need to have the hammer down, building a gap right now.
Yeah, it's all about track position as we now get news of a pit lane penalty for Philip Worley. He's going to have to make a tour through the pits as a result of that incident at Brooklands on the lap previous. So a quick decision from race control. Obviously a shame for Worley and for DPR, but rules are rules, and that incident could definitely have been avoided. Meanwhile, take a look at another of the Exto gaming machines. This is the Ford GT coming out of Luffield and down the back stretch, or what used to be the front stretch. Cameron Stubber doing well in the last position in the top 20 and chasing down Philip Morton. Meanwhile, in the top 10, Davison and Rizzo. Looks like Davison has had a bit of trouble recovering from the previous incident involving his teammate in Worley, and now Rizzo using the slipstream to his advantage down here.
Rizzo was down in 13th on lap 1 after whatever that problem was that we didn't quite see. He's working his way back up. So now he's gained a couple of positions. He's going to gain one more as Philip Worley serves that penalty. So Rizzo's going to move from 13th back up into 8th, and now he's staring at 7th position. And the race pace, once again, looking very good for these trick guys.
Yes, indeed. And Rizzo's in a good spot here to save a bit of fuel, unless he decides he's faster than Davison and wants to have a go. Well, I think that proves it right there. He pulled out, had a bit of a look, but then decided to slot right back in. So Rizzo, once again, playing the long game here. And it looks like Jackson Walls and Adam Briggs behind him are more than happy to hold station as well. Actually, as I say that, I see Jackson Walls flash his headlights. I'm not quite sure why.
He's got the Bobo fever, I think, there, looking to move up through the field.
Yeah, most likely. Well, Simon Mazzomo and Darren Lobb fighting for lucky 13th position as well. Looks like the field is mostly evenly spread out now, but there's still good battles to be had all throughout the field at the moment. And Mazzomo remains in the position that he started in, but all around him there's drivers that have shifted positions. He's just going a bit wide off the exit of Cops there. It's not going to help him in terms of the incident count. It's very easy to push too hard here. See the Ferrari behind him of Darren Lobb. Getting very aggressive on corner entry. Actually managing to maintain some good pace on exit as well. So Mazzomo, either his tyres are starting to come under attack, or he's just deciding to look after them for a bit. We're getting some confirmation of Philip Worley retiring from the race, which is a shame to see. And here goes Darren Lobb. Mazzomo leaving him room, though. Can he maintain the momentum on the exit? He's got a better line through the last corner there. So Lobb was able to gain ultimately, but not quite make the pass. And that's the hardest thing to do of all.
Yeah, I think it was mainly self-preservation from Simon Mazzomo there. He thinks, you're too far back, but I'm not quite going to chance it.
Oh, look out.
Darren Lobb still thinking about it through this switchback section here. He gets to the inside.
There we go. That is a move done. And translating some alternate movement into a very decisive pass there for Darren Lobb. And that's helped out his teammate Neil Pearson behind him, because now he is all over the back of Dance. Cameron just trying to sort himself out in what is now the middle of a pack. You can see Pearson very aggressive on the fronts. He's careening into those corners, and Martin Silvassi and Scott Soslovsky want to follow him through.
And they're in 16th and 17th, well down from where we'd typically see them. So they're also trying to recover up through the field. Had their own issues. We saw Silvassi doing a 360 through the grass. Soslovsky didn't quite qualify where we would have expected him to, and then I think he had one of those slowdown penalties. So while their teammate Alexander Bird leads, two of those other teammates are having a bit of a tougher race than we've typically seen those guys endure.
Yeah, and that's been the story for Trick Sim Sports quite a bit this season. They've seen huge amounts of success at the front end of the field, but there's also a couple of their drivers who have had luck that's not very befitting of their status as one of the top teams in the field. But
Hunter
hopefully in future seasons they'll be able to
maybe
sort
the
that out.
replay.
Oh yeah,
Replay, we're going to see Hunter through on Keane. That really looked like Keane was massively off pace. I think he's another one of those drivers who's picked up a slowdown through the S's. He just cut one of those apexes a little bit too close. then you will be paying a big penalty for it. More racing continues, though.
Yes, indeed. Hayden Benefield and Benjamin Johnson doing the old switching back over and under. Benefield, oh no, losing grip over the curb, and they make contact as a result. That's something I'm surprised I haven't seen yet, because it does seem like it's quite an easy thing to do coming through that last corner. The car's already on the very edge of grip, and if you push it just too far beyond the racing surface, the rear end goes, and there was not much that Hayden Benefield could do to save that. To Johnson's benefit, he did wait and re-concede the position just in case he was deemed at fault for it. I don't think he was. It was just a case of good hard racing here, as we'll see on the modem simulation replay. Benefield just goes off, gets unsettled over the curb, and there wasn't much that Johnson could do, if I'm honest.
Well, we saw it live on board. It did look like it was happening for a while. I don't know, maybe Johnson could have done a tiny bit more, but look how early in the corner in this onboard that he was already struggling with the back of the car. And then once he was wide offline and onto the AstroTurf, the rear of that Porsche just was not hanging on. And he was a passenger very early in that.
Yeah, he certainly was.
Problem for Jackson Walls there. Adam Briggs goes on through. Walls drops one more position. Not sure what happened there, but more battles continue with Lob, was also now trying to have a look at Reese Keane.
Yeah, Darren Lob, he's all over the back of Keane at the moment, and that's quite the lunge there at Vale. Keane saw him coming and went a bit deeper into the corner there. This is an interesting bit of racing between teammates, it has to be said. Darren Lob always likes to have a lob. And he's catching up in a straight line there. He's got some good pace in that Ferrari, hasn't he?
I just need to enunciate and let you know that I rolled my eyes earlier there. You didn't see it, but now you know. But we're on board with
I appreciate that.
It's what you deserve. Reese Keane was a bit more aggressive with some of the curbs there, bouncing the car up in the air, and maybe you can get away with that if you've got your suspension tuned for it. But otherwise, I think the fastest way through those corners is to keep all four wheels firmly planted on the ground. But Lob is not able to close. The driver he's got behind him there is Simon Rizzomo, who's in the middle of the action.
Oh, Lob's gone way too deep. Sorry to interrupt, and he's actually fallen into the clutches of Mazzomo now. Remember, these guys were battling just a couple of laps ago. Well, now Mazzomo thinks he might have another chance here. Lob, you could see he was pushing incredibly hard, but I think he just overwhelmed his tyres down there at Brooklands. Davison and Rizzo, meanwhile, still no change of position between these guys, so I think Ross Rizzo does look like he is committing to another fuel saver here. Minimise the time that he spends in the pits. But Davison, I have to say, he's holding on pretty well. Yes, he hasn't had the best opening laps, but to still be maintaining 7th despite everything that's happened to him, I have to say it's quite impressive.
Yeah, I don't know why the pace was just a bit tough for Davison at the start. He might have had just a couple more laps now to settle it down, find his rhythm, and it's looking a bit stronger now. But this can happen, you know, in the pack at the start of the race. You feel a little off, or you don't have the confidence, and then suddenly you're taking defensive lines and cars are looking around in your mirror, and you just never have time to quite settle. Neil Pearson is in the pit lane. I was going to say that I guess the pit window is probably open now if you want to be aggressive on that strategy. We'll see if that's what Pearson is doing.
Yeah, we will. We'll keep an eye on Pearson as the laps wear on. But Davison, coming off his debut win in the series last time out, definitely shows that that he has the potential to challenge 4 wins and 4 titles. And of course, now he's facing off at the moment against a 3-time champion of the Sprint Series. So I'm very interested to see how this battle concludes. You can see that Rizzo's just taking those very smooth entry, apex, exit lines, but Davison taking Luffield a little bit more aggressively, running out a little bit wider, turning it into a bit of a double apex corner so as to get onto the throttle a little sooner. I'm amazed.
Speaking of running it smoother and running it out wide, Jackson Walls in 10th place has completed 8 laps and still does not have a best lap scored because he's yet to complete a clean lap. That's how hard he's pushing and extending the boundaries of the circuit here and there. No best lap time yet because none of them have been clean.
Righto. Well, I think in order to not come under the wrath of the stewards and maybe get a points penalty, I think Walls needs to start driving within those bounds pretty soon. But you can tell that from 14th to 10th, he's definitely on a mission to get into the top 10. And I'm beginning to wonder if he's actually listening to us because he just flashed his headlights again as I was looking at him.
Maybe he's got it bound to one of his gear shifters.
Maybe. A mystery for another time. The mystery of the moment is, what is Ross Rizzo planning versus Danny Davison here? Because let's take a look at the lap times just quickly. Davison 57.7, Ross Rizzo 57.6. The guys in front of them are quite a bit faster. Jarek did a 57.3 last lap, and it's 57.6s and 5s from Healy and Dance as we see Hayden Benefield coming into the pits. So drivers further down in the field definitely going for that earlier stop, and Rizzo making the move finally on Danny Davison into Brooklands. I think he's recognized that their pace is starting to fall off here. He has to catch up to Jarek if he wants to still fuel save and maintain some track position.
Yeah, good clean move, and the two cars in front are battling each other a little bit, so I think he'll close in on them.
Yeah, meanwhile, Lob versus Silvassi versus Keane and Mazomo versus Sislovsky. Great battles here in the midfield through this section. I love watching onboards through here because it's one of those sections of racetrack that you have to push extremely hard for. What on earth happened to Mazomo there? Looked like a bit of a mistake, possibly some oversteer through maggots. Mensislovsky had to back off slightly, but he's well in the draft now. Well, actually, that's Silvassi and Lob's draft. Lob going defensive. Can Silvassi take him around the outside of Stowe? It's definitely been done before, but not on this occasion. Silvassi now looking for a way by at Vale. Can he do it around the outside? It looks like he can. Becomes the inside for Club. Oh, come on, guys. Side by side through the last corner. Lob getting a much better exit there in that Ferrari. This is great racing at the moment.
Yeah, Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel can't do that cleanly, but these two can. So great defending by Lob, but a fantastic attack as well there by Silvassi. I really thought he was going to manage to make it work around the outside. Lob had the confidence and got the better drive off the corner, though.
Yeah, looks like getting the better drive off corners is something that Lob is certainly comfortable with, especially curved acceleration zones, it seems, because he also got a good run out of there as well through the loop and Aintree. But Cameron Dance and Ryan Jarek, they are still fighting with each other, possibly bringing Ross Rizzo onto the back of them. Rizzo's last lap time was a 57.4, and these guys were doing mid to high 57s, so they're definitely starting to trip over each other now. Of course, Rizzo must also be aware that he's likely to tug along Davison with him.
Yeah, you can see in the background of the shot, Davison's still absolutely there as the two in front come through this complicated S's section, and yeah, Davison can see 5th place just up the road there, so it's still all to play for on these group of guys. Dance is going to lead the train down the hangar straight. For whatever reason, Jarek just hasn't closed in as much in the draft as I thought he would, but under brakes he closes in too much because he's gone in a bit too hot and a bit too deep.
Yeah, Stowe is an incredibly quick corner, but it does actually turn out to be a little bit tighter than it looks. You have to turn in early. You have to really line up the apex and be aggressive with the curb. Otherwise, you just can't carry the speed through there. So it's all about moderating your expectations through corners like that. Sislovsky and Mazomo, meanwhile, almost bumper to bumper as they come across the start-finish line. We're now almost past the halfway point, only a couple of minutes to go.
And two more drivers in the pit lane, Cameron Stubber, Daniel Misdale, both of them a little bit further down the order, but a move here. Solowski.
My goodness. He was on the grass coming up to Cameron Dance there, and he's going to try the over-under here through the village loop. And through Aintree, what will he be able to do? He's on the racing line. Mizomo out on the marbles just slightly. But it looks like Mizomo is able to maintain a bit more straight line speed as they go side by side on the run up to Brooklands. Mizomo gives up the position. Interesting.
Through Aintree, Mizomo gave him a bit more room than I would have, left a line open to the inside, which again, I thought he was clear enough to have slammed that door. But as we say, past halfway point in the race now, a couple of drivers taking their pit stops now, and I hate to put the jinx on this, but anyone who's done their service now might benefit out of a safety car, which we know can happen at any time in this series, especially with how hard some of these guys fight. Lots of battles still happening in our 27 car field, 26 cars out on circuit because we've had one retirement.
Yes, indeed. That one retirement being Mr. Philip Worley. Well, from Cameron Dance's perspective, he's got a nice empty track ahead of him for a few seconds at least, but he's got a wall of enemies at the gate behind him. Ryan Jerick, of course, being foremost of those, but it's a long, spread-out train all the way down to position 11, possibly 12th and 13th, who are now having a bit of an exchange. Richard Hunter and Darren Lobb. Oh, no, sorry, Reese Keane and Darren Lobb. Keane having to yield there on the inside because Lobb is looking incredibly pacey in that Ferrari once again.
Yeah, split liveries from the DPR guys. Got some sort of pseudo-retro round liveries out there that likes of what Keane has got compared to the more traditional colours on the vehicle of Lobb. But teammates, nonetheless, as the graphic so says, that they sort of, look like a set of piano keys.
Yes, indeed. That would make for quite the interesting team photo, I have to say. Well, Dance and Jerick still battling here for the top 5 as Silvassi, who we just saw going through the pit lane, has come out of his box. And it is a 10.8 second stop for Silvassi, which is interesting when you compare it to Hayden Benefield's 7.6 second stop. So someone is trying to play a bit of a game here.
The figure I've got for Hayden Benefield's 27.4. Remember, he had a lot of damage on that car. So I imagine at the very least, he tried to get something done to those panels of the rear wing. I'm not sure they were going to be able to fix. Yeah, you remember Benefield, the younger one, copped quite a heavy impact off of, it was Benjamin Johnson.
Yeah, my mistake. I'm obviously looking at the wrong information there on my timing screens, but wouldn't be a SimSpeed broadcast without a Reese Gardner mess up, so we satisfied our quota for now.
And boy, we've been missing out.
Yeah, certainly. I have had a bit of a hiatus. We got to get that number up as Ryan Jerick comes into the pit lane. So he's had enough of getting stuck behind Cam Dance. And more side-by-side action there as Brad Ratu and Alex Court go side-by-side. And those guys close together on track for quite some time. Ratu just making his way through, out of Vale and through Club. Very well-performed maneuver there from Bradley Ratu. Ryan Jerick's pit stop is continuing to go on. And we'll compare it with Silvassi's stop. 11.8 for Ryan Jerick there. So that will be the first indicator as to what strategies are going to be like in the midfield.
Yeah, and track temperatures are still very, very hot. And we've seen in the last minute or so just two different drivers trying to catch some oversteer. So a lot of the drivers struggling with the fact that there's not as much grip out there as you'd normally feel. Bird, no such dramas for him leading the race. That apex that he's just cut a whole bunch out of, that's one of the ones you've got to be careful about grabbing a slowdown. Bird is got it all under control, it seems, but with the lead he's got, he doesn't want to throw it away.
No, certainly not. And around a track like Silverstone, high average speed In fact, with these modifications to the circuit that came in 2010, Silverstone became one of the highest average speed road courses in the world. So if you do make a mistake, if you do get a slowdown, it is going to have an exponential effect on your lap time. You want to avoid it as much as possible, but the likes of Bird and Peasnick up the front, especially with Trent Thomas as well, seem comfortable. Healy, though, goes for the stop, and following him in comes the rest. Cameron Dance from 5th. Responding, all of these guys, to Ryan Jerrick's pit stop the lap before. Danny Davison and Jackson Walls making their ways in too. Richard Hunter too. So pit lane is going to absolutely light up here.
I think one of the most exciting battles that's going to happen out of this is, will Dance hold on to 5th? Because we saw Ryan Jerrick come in earlier trying to undercut him. Those two might be very, very close. Jerrick took maybe a little bit more fuel than we were expecting out of some, but he certainly looked like he didn't want to be held up by Dance any longer. What can Jerrick do on that outlap in the clean air? We're going to try and see. And the pit stop, Dance gets about a second shorter time. He's coming out of the pit lane now.
Well, it looks like Ryan Jerrick's ploy didn't exactly work versus Cameron Dance. He is now out of the pits and into turn 3, coming out ahead of Michael Taliancic. So Ryan Jerrick, unfortunate, but he still has a lot to fight for at the moment. Walls and Hunter have come out very close to each other as well. Reese Keane and Martin Silvassi trying to find their way around too. So this outlap, I think, is going to be one of the crucial parts of this race, because it looks like we're not in much danger of a safety car. Touch wood.
You had to go and say it, didn't you?
I said touch wood. I'm safe.
All right, sure. So the leader also in the pit lane now, Alexander Bird's going to come in. Peasnick has taken some huge gambles on the fuel strategy this season, and he's going to continue doing that. He's staying out. He's the only driver to have won a race this season without pitting, when we had 3 safety cars at Zandvoort, and he took a massive gamble on that one and fuel saved within an inch of his life. I think almost spluttered across the line. So almost everyone else, well, a couple more drivers staying out, but the top, well, first and third into the pit lane as they were when they came in.
And we'll compare pit stop times as well when we get them. In terms of the midfield battle, as Mazomo coming into the pits again for some reason. Has he pitted yet? No, he is not. That is his first stop. My apologies.
Only one driver has made 2 pit stops, and that's Hayden Benefield, who came in a second time. Is still in the pit box. It might either be a retirement or they've got a lot of repairs to do to that car. So Mazomo, definitely his first stop.
Righto. Well, in terms of fast pit stops through the rest of the field, the fastest pit stop times are actually 10.8 seconds from the trick cars of Silvassi and Thomas. And actually, as I say that, Mazomo has just set the fastest pit stop time of everyone so far in terms of regular pit stops, 10.5 seconds.
Yeah, the FT1 guys in their Porsches have tried to work out an aggressive fuel number, because I'm seeing Cameron Dance was also pretty aggressive with his pit stop time, and we saw that where he was in a battle with Jerrick and then has come out through the pit stop phase a couple seconds ahead of Jerrick. So I don't know if the Porsche is just a little bit better on the fuel, or the FT1 guys have got a setup that works for it. Battle here of Ratu and Pearson. It's going to be Pearson around the outside there, but Ratu, we saw him get sent for that, well, just get sent a little bit through that corner in the very early going, so he wants to recover up the order. And Peasnick, from first on the track, he was second before the pit stop started. He's in the lane, and so are many other drivers as well. So pit stops just about all completed, and that cleanses the field.
It does indeed, and Brad Ratu suffering a bit of aero push through Cops there. Not quite able to get on the curb like Pearson did. You can tell he is pushing hard. And we'll see what kind of lap times come out of his car once he gets back into his rhythm. Oh, you can see Ratu. I think that's a slowdown for him. Yeah. That was, whoa, hold on a minute. 9.3 second stop time for Peasnick. That is significant.
Yeah, we've spoken to him a couple of times because he's landed on the podium, and Peasnick has been playing, gambling games, win it or bin it, all in for glory with his pit stop times this season. He does the same again this time. Will he just have fumes left at the end?
Oh,
Darren
lob.
Lobb, all out of sorts. Very
Ah.
far off the racing line and almost caught air off one of the curbs. Rejoins right there in front of, who's that in 13th? Reese Keane, who doesn't look happy with it.
No, certainly not. And they're going to go side by side down the Wellington straight, if only for a couple of fractions of a second. Lobb just with too much straight line speed in that Ferrari for the BMWs to cope with at the moment. But Lobb's starting to fall off after a strong first stint. Meanwhile, Adam Briggs and Ryan Jerrick fighting here for 7th and 8th. Jerrick looks like the move is going to be on here at Cops. He does have tyres that have been rubbered in a little bit better than these guys. Briggs trying to maintain the line here, and they're continuing to go side by side up towards the Beckett's S's. You do not want to go side by side through here, but they're going to do it anyway. Briggs versus Jerrick. Amazing stuff here. Adam Briggs just holding on to the track position there, but he does not have the traction on the exit. Can Ryan Jerrick hook it up and pass him into Stowe? Well, Ross Rizzo's going to make a big move on Cameron Dance up ahead there. That's going to be a position change for 9th and 8th, 5th and 6th, sorry. Looking at the wrong set of numbers once again, but Briggs, I think, has definitely staked his claim there versus Ryan Jerrick, and now Danny Davison is going to look to make good on what was some lost potential in his first stint.
Yeah, we're going to get a replay of what happened to... we're going to get a replay. Darren Lobb, so it's on his out lap. He's maybe a little bit off the normal line here. What on earth happens? He just snatched the rears. I think he's caught the rear brakes, caught the curb, and then ended way out in the gravel on his out lap there. Basically the first braking zone since that pit stop.
Yeah, well, that's, again, something that catches drivers out around here. You end up effectively missing the high load of the first two corners to build up pressure and heat for that first braking zone, so it can be a bit misleading. But this three-car battle, Briggs, Jerrick, and Davison, has not spread out one bit since we last looked at it. Briggs, it actually seems, has not been able to escape Jerrick's clutches, so Jerrick has not quite been able to make the move yet, but you can tell he is very hungry for it.
Yep, through Cops, and I think going to go side by side again. You'd think it unwise because the man behind Danny Davison would have been licking his chops a lap ago when he saw them lose as much time as they did through this section of corners. Jerrick's last lap, when they did that, he lost 2 seconds. So he does not do so again, but he doesn't get the line he wants through there either. Davison not close enough down the hanger straight. Certainly Briggs under a lot less pressure than he was a lap ago.
Yeah, well, that last lap, I believe, was actually Briggs's out lap after his pit stop, so he had a bit of a baptism of fire coming back into the action of the race, but now that he has had a full lap to show what he can do in terms of lap time, it'll be interesting to see how it stacks up. Start-finish line coming up for these guys. Adam Briggs with a 57.89, Ryan Jerrick 57.935, Danny Davison 57.910. So these guys are incredibly close. For now, Adam Briggs has a very slight edge. And could this be a pass here into turn 1? Reese Keane, you don't often see this kind of move being made, but Darren Lobb, once again, it seems that he is able to maneuver that Ferrari very well on the throttle and get himself out of those sticky situations.
And look at this, we've got 3 DPR cars, but 3 different manufacturers. So you're not locked into any particular vehicle if that's your team by the looks of things. Got Jackson Walls on screen once again, but the headlights aren't flashing from him just yet. What he has got is 2 teammates right behind him who've been closing in in form of Lob and Keen. And through here they go, and the back end steps out just a little bit on entry for Walls. That lets Lob get down the inside, and he's been having great traction off the corners. Difficulty breaking into the corners, but great traction off the corners in that Ferrari. So what can he manage? Gonna look to the inside of Cops. I'm not sure that's gonna happen any day of the week.
Overcooked it. Walls way overcooked it. And that could be an appointment with the wall. It is. That's a big shame for Jackson Walls. He just went into Cops too deep, got caught on the outside on the marbles where there was absolutely no grip. We're going to get a modem simulation replay of that unfortunate incident. So Lob obviously behind him, putting on a lot of pressure and just catching the rears a little bit too much on the brakes. And that's ended up completely ruining the rear end of that DPR Porsche.
Yeah, so in the hot track conditions, the stability at the rear of that car was just not looking good whatsoever, because I mentioned he had a wiggle one corner before, and he's got his teammate all up in his mirrors, and he comes in too hot trying to defend the position and makes a mistake. So that is an unfortunate trick car there, pushing very, very wide through the last couple of corners. Solowski there, I think he just gets away with that one because he went the right side, the correct side of the apex.
Yeah, did just get away with it. No, Jarek and Davison just did a bit of synchronized driving there. Both of them having a bit of an oversteer problem coming into turn 3 and having to correct for that. They've lost quite a bit of time to Adam Briggs through that slow section.
Bad day at Silverstone to be a set of rear tyres, I think. But Davison's been trying to size up Jarek for a couple laps. It just hasn't happened yet. It's BMW versus BMW.
Yeah, and it's been interesting to see how these cars have stacked up throughout the course of the season. The BMW was the car of choice when the series of SSA began, but as we've seen with drivers like John Peasnick, some have decided to switch out of it and back into more familiar machinery. But those that are stuck with the BMW have managed to do wonders with it, especially if you are a member of Trick Sim Sports. But the likes of DPR have certainly managed to extract some good pace out of those Bimmers as well. Speaking of DPR and Trick, here's another fight for them. The battle for 12th, Szlowski, Keen and Silvassi. You see Keen being very aggressive over those curves through the Beckett's S's. And just managing to keep himself ahead of Martin Silvassi within draft range, but still not quite close enough for Silvassi to make a move on him, but he is going to make a move. Jackson Walls still trying to get that thing around, and Reese Keen looking quite racy here on Szlowski.
This is where Solowski was almost off a lap ago. He keeps it all within play that time, but it was a great run from Keen through the middle of the corner. I think Keen might get a slightly better run off the exit too. It's pretty even. What about down into turn 3? We've seen some big moves down here in towards the loop. I'm not sure if Keen is close enough. Solowski tracks all the way out to defend the inside there. What's that going to mean for his run through this switchback section? Keen could really be on for a good run down the Wellington straight.
Well, Szlowski, it looks like the initial traction phase was kind to him. He's managed to pull out a bit of a gap there. It's interesting to see how cars go through that first sector, because you can go defensive into turn 3 and not be compromised through turn 4 just because it's so tight. Here's Simon Mazzomo and Jackson Walls, suffering a bit more trouble there. This time through the Beckett's S's. That rear end contact has ruined the downforce of that thing. Certainly
not that it looked
having
like
fun.
It had much rear downforce before it went into the wall either, unfortunately, for Jackson Walls. You can see there's only just underneath 4 minutes remaining. He's just trying to limp that thing home.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, why wouldn't you? At this stage, there's only a few minutes left on the clock. Alexander Bird is on his lonesome out in front at the moment, and that has been the summary of his season. This has been one of Alexander Bird's finest season-long performances, I have to say, and he'll be crowned a very grateful champion at the end of this one. still setting lap times in the low 57s, even at this stage. John Peasnick unable to quite keep up with him. His last lap was a 57.6 in that Ferrari. Oh no! Brad Ratu and Alex Court coming together there. That's a bit more like Vettel versus Verstappen, David.
Yeah, indeed. We've seen a couple of moves try to go side by side into there and a little bit more contact through there. We'll see the replay once again. And Ratu tries to take it down the inside at Club and just doesn't quite get it clear. And that's why, Stowe, a little bit of argy-bargy on the way through. He's saying, you got to leave me a car with the inside, and then they touch again on the exit, and actually touch again on the exit here as well. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell which car is which with how much paint they've been trading.
Yeah, well, argy-bargy is a bit more of a touring car thing than a GT thing, but I guess in this series you can afford to have a bit of biffo from time to time. Meanwhile, Jarek and Davison still facing off against each other out here. We haven't seen any crazy moves from either of them against each other, at least. So, Davison, there's a lot on the table for him. Can he make good on what was a poor opening stint, and he is now many positions down on where he started? Or can Ryan Jarek, from position 11, all he's done is advance so far, so he's got a lot to play for as well at this final round. Just under a minute and a half to go now. We'll see our leaders taking the white flag imminently.
Yeah, Alexander Bird has already started the final lap of the race. These cars we're looking at here are also going to see the white flag in just a corner or so's time. It means that Davison is really running out of places to make a move on Ryan Jarek. He's had the pressure on for a couple of laps. He's been closing in a little bit. The only thing that I think is going to help him is that Jarek is no longer picking up as much of a slipstream off Adam Briggs as he was a couple of laps ago. This is going to need to be one hell of a lap from Davison, though, if he's going to manage to grab that position. He's so good on the brakes, though, that could come in handy.
It certainly could. He is very aggressive on the brakes in that opening sector, and he's gained back almost all the time that he lost versus Jarek there, I would believe. And then flat out down the Wellington straight, not close enough to make a move this time around, and I dare say it won't eventuate for the rest of this lap. But Reese Keane and Martin Silvassi are still fighting. A little bit of a mistake from Keane on the exit of Aintree, so Silvassi's going to try and go through here at Brooklands. He's able to get through on corner entry. Good stuff. But will the DPR car be able to come back at him through Luffield? Bit more of an aggressive entry. Slight bit of Morse code on the rear bumper, but Silvassi's got it.
Yeah, is it one tap or two taps for Let Me By? I think either mean the same thing.
Yeah, well, we'll have to consult the official guide or make one. We'll have to wait and see. But Alexander Bird, there will be no waiting or seeing for him. Just a few more corners to go, and he will seal his Epiroc Sprint Series Australia title with victory here at Silverstone. A fantastic drive, completely untroubled up the front. And it's the typical SimSpeed story. So quick, we barely give him any airtime. So far up ahead, John Peasnick taking a fantastic second place, and Trent Thomas finishing in third. The top three staying the same from where they started. How will the battle between Jarek and Davison venture out? Looks like Jarek has just managed to keep Davison behind him for long enough. He will secure 8th place in that one.
There is so many battles coming to the checkered flag here. Neil Pearson gives it everything, but it's not going to be enough to get past Mazomo. But here's a proper drag race. That's Mazomo and Ratu. And Ratu round the outside grabs that one. Got Jackson Walls right behind who, despite the damage, is going to try and participate in the drag race. He is unfortunately not going to grab any of them. That was, I think, actually our last battles to the checkered flag. That was a great one there between Ratu and Mazomo.
That certainly was. Great battles all throughout the field, but the season-long battle has certainly been won for this guy, Alexander Bird, for Trick Sim Sports. They've been the team to beat in Sprint Series Australia from essentially the moment they first entered. And with the performances that we've seen from the likes of Bird over the course of this year, it's no wonder he is well at the top of this one. So big congratulations to Alexander Bird for securing the title. And post-race review for an incident between cars 138 and 038. So that's Bradley Ratu and Jackson Walls. Another one as well, the 44 in the 038. That's Alex Court and Bradley Ratu. So Ratu may have to pay a couple of visits to the steward's room after this one, but still a very well driven one from a lot of the Exto Gaming guys in this one. I'm sure they'll be proud of that result. And it's time for Alexander Bird to do his celebratory donuts as we gear up for the presentation of the official results, thanks to our partner Epiroc.
I appreciate that there's diversity in the workforce, and Australia is becoming a prominent influence in this area with 4 females on the management team. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. The official results then for the final round of Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. Alexander Bird taking the win by 5.7 seconds from John Peasnick. Trent Thomas completing the podium for Trick Sim Sports. Michael Healy and Ross Rizzo make it Trick Sim Sports in the top 5. Cameron Dance finishes in 6th place. That's a great run there from 9th. Adam Briggs making it 7th place, all the way back from 16th. And Ryan Jarrett clawing his way up to 8th place.
In 9th place was Danny Davison and Richard Hunter. Bit of a quieter race there to 10th place for him. Darren Lobb in 11th. And 12th, Scott Solosky and his teammate Martin Silvassi in 13th. Those guys didn't have their best race, but they come across the line in that order. Reese Keane in 14th, Philip Morton in 15th, and 16th place is Neil Pearson.
Alex Court comes home in 17th place, and Bradley Ratu slides back from 7th place to 18th. Simon Mazzomo making it 19th, and Daniel Misdale rounding out the top 20 for DPR. Benjamin Johnson makes it 21st. Cameron Stubber coming home in 22nd. Michael Taliansich on his first venture into this series makes it 23rd in the 777. And Jackson Walls brings his damaged car home in 24th position. He'll have to be happy with seeing the checker.
The only car remaining here off the lead lap, Sean Reed, and then retirements. Hayden Benfield, we saw his unfortunate spin on the pit straight, which he got just a little bit of help with later on, and then Philip Worley penalised, and then a retirement.
Yes, indeed, and we're going to go back and have a look at some of the other battles that were eventuating in those final laps. But first, we do have a very special announcement to make. It is the summer plans for GT Leagues Australia. We're excited to officially announce the Epiroc GLA Summer Series. This championship is going to run on Thursday nights over 8 rounds during the first season, the first official iRacing season of 2020. We're alternating between GTE and GT3 cars every week. The calendar is visiting some classic tracks, which will ensure some great racing. The series is also going to feature more relaxed rules, allowing drivers to switch between cars and teams during the season. The races will follow the current format that we will be familiar with from SSA, a 45-minute sprint race that requires 1 pit stop due to fuel limits. Sign-ups are now open. It can be found on the GLA Facebook page and in the GLA Discord. A massive thanks to Epiroc Australia for coming on board again as a series partner with GT Leagues Australia. And of course, ourselves at SimSpeed TV will be covering this on the iRacing Esports Network. So get your entry in. Summer season starting very soon.
definitely something to look forward to. People love the GTE car. We've seen the great racing it produces here. Same for the GT3 car. So a great little summer series. But Bradley Ratu, during today's race, a man who was in and amongst the wars. We're going to see some final lap replays from him. This is his move on Simon Mazomo that I think we're going to get a look at. Something else. Here it is. And yeah, not quite sure how this one played out because our eyes were kind of elsewhere and we caught it late. It's a great run from Ratu through the S's and onto the hangar straight. It's alongside Mazomo, but of course it's the last lap. Mazomo is not going to give up.
Yeah, that's a very good run there from Mazomo getting into the slipstream of the BMW there, but Ratu trying around the outside at Stowe. Looks like he's tried to go for the over-under, take him around the outside at Vale. So question is, was he able to get it done? And it looks like he was able to. In fact, we just caught the end of that when it was happening live. Excellent bit of racing there to finish things off here.
Yeah, I can't remember what else we wanted to look at after the race.
Well, I think it's an opportune time then to have a chat to our podium because first up we have position number 1, Alexander Bird. P1 in the race, P1 in the championship. Perfect way to cap off your season.
Yeah, thanks, Reese. I'm pretty happy. No, it was really good. I obviously had an absolute shocker last week or 2 weeks ago. It was just good that I still had that drop in the pocket, and yeah, this turned out really well. So it's gone as well as I could have hoped.
Yeah, certainly. It looked like you had a good pace advantage at Silverstone versus the likes of Peasnick. Seemed like you always had that edge by a few tenths. So the setup obviously working very well for you guys at Trick.
Yeah, I think this is a good track for me. I'm strong here, and so that always helps. Like I think I had good pace on my own, and then the setup itself, we'd been using variations of that for sort of Spa OEC, Catalunya OEC, and it's clearly a pretty insane base because every time we stick it on the car, it's fast.
Well, certainly proved it once again here, Alex. And with the championship now in the pocket, will you be returning for the GLA Summer Series and looking to defend your title?
I gotta wait to see the announcement first. I don't know if it's been done yet.
We just did it on the broadcast. You'll have to have a look later on, Alex.
Yeah, I'll have to tune in and check it out. Definitely be coming back for your commentary race.
Excellent. Well, I'm certainly putting my hand up for it. Before we let you go, Alex, who gets it done for you?
Well, obviously, Trick Custom Fabrications, Night Rider Designs, GLA with running the series. You guys for doing the commentary, but most of all the boys at Trick Sim Sports, Ross, Trent, Marty, Scott, Heels, Ant, Pete, everyone there has just been fantastic all season. I just want to say thanks to them all for everything.
Alexander Bird there, your series champion for Trick Sim Sports and taking a worthy victory in this final round. David, the next driver that we are going to speak to is our second place finisher, John Peasnick, a quiet race in second.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Yeah, it was a bit of a quiet weight race. Just Alex was a little bit too quick, and congrats to him on the championship. I just couldn't, just probably 1 or 2 tenths each lap just ticked up, and I just couldn't bring it back. So, just had to salvage what I can do, and get the best out of my car. So yeah.
John, another big gamble. Well, I don't know how much of a gamble on that fuel number, but you always seem to be willing to shave that fuel drop down to the finest of margins.
Yes and no. I think the Ferrari is a little bit better on a fuel than the BMW. Every car's got different pros and cons, and that's obviously one of the pros of the Ferrari. So it may lack a little bit of pace in certain areas, but it gets it back in fuel economy. So I knew if I held the gap a little bit tighter, it would have been a bit better. But I just drifted out a little bit too far to actually make it work.
Track temperatures relatively hot today, and it can often be a bit of a slick surface at Silverstone. How did you find that? Because a bit deeper down the order, a lot of people were some big handfuls of opposite lock every now and again.
Yeah, obviously I would have preferred a little bit cooler track. I did have a couple of moments of oversteer here and there, but I more or less struggled with the corner speed and the slow stuff. So if I had that, I probably could have been a little bit closer to Alex. So I couldn't really gain it back up through the high speed enough to keep the gap there. So if it was cool, would I have been a little bit closer? Probably not. He was just a little bit too quick tonight.
Well, despite not being in the title hunt because of that mid-season car swap, you put on some good performances here, and obviously I think Sprint Series Australia will continue a bit further on in the future. But sort of next up in the world of GT Leagues Australia is that summer season that we've just announced. GTE cars, GT3 cars in alternating order. You are going to look forward to that? Will we see you in many races there?
Yeah, I only just read it just before, so yeah, I dare say I will jump in and have a bit of a go. At this stage, I will be able to make the start of it, but unfortunately, probably towards the end of just family commitments, new child, a new house, some of this stuff may get a bit tricky. So I may have a little break, but I will come back. But I don't know timing yet, but it will be good to get back into a GT3 car again and have a bit of a go. So I much prefer those over the GTE, just a little bit more attitude about them. So I'll look forward to that one.
That's awesome to hear. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Congratulations on that second place here. Is there anyone you want to throw open to? Anyone you need to thank?
Obviously, just to thank my mate Reese. We drive pretty solo, so it's a good little team effort. And yeah, thanks again, buddy.
Well, Reese, there we go. Our first and second place finishers.
Yes, indeed. And I've got our third place finisher here, Trent Thomas from Trick Sim Sports, completing the podium. Trent, it was a good way to cap off your season with a podium here at Silverstone.
Yeah, it definitely was. I was glad to get a solid result at the end there. My main target for this race was actually to beat Michael Healy, my teammate. It was down to him and I for the third place in the championship. So mission accomplished, I guess.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Very good stuff. It looked like it was a pretty quiet race up the front for the top three guys. We did see a bit of strategy experimentation from John Peasnick, but for the most part, it seemed at Trek, it was business as usual for you guys.
Yeah, I was surprised that we sort of got that bit of a like. There's a bit of a gap between the top three, but then there was sort of a bit of daylight behind that. So I was surprised we had that bit of a breakaway, but it looked like Alex just had a couple of tenths on John, and then John just had a couple of tenths on me, and that's just sort of the way the race stayed most of the time. So pretty happy just to have a nice quiet race for a change.
Well, quiet race is always a good one. No news is good news, as they say. But in terms of your full season performance so far, Trick Sim Sports with a lot of success in this particular series already. But certainly, it seems like this has been a very strong season for you guys all up.
Yeah, I think comes down to just the team dynamic. All the guys we all put in the effort when it comes to practice and setup changes and feedback and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely a team effort to get all the cars where they are and where we finish. So it's definitely a big team effort from us all.
Well, in terms of future commitments, definitely running on a high from this result, Trent. So motivated much for next season?
Well, you know me, Reese. There's GT3. You know what I'm like with the
Oh,
Merc for life.
Merc for life, or we look forward to potentially seeing you in a Merc during the summer series. Trent, before we let you go, is there anyone that you would like to thank?
Obviously, Trick uh, Custom Fabrications, Night Rider Designs, and JRT. Obviously, the whole Trick team, all the voice, really good. GLA, you guys as well for your commentary and all the effort from everybody behind the scenes throughout the season. So, yeah, I'm not going to list everybody's name. You know who you are, but yeah, thank you a lot to everybody.
Thank you very much for joining us, Trent Thomas. And we've got one final interviewee here, Mr. Haynes. It is Mr. Rizzo, P5.
Yeah, sure, Ross. Running your way up to 5th through the race, but what happened on lap 1 that saw you drop, I think, as far as to 13th?
Well, I've accomplished a number of things in this series, but a slowdown before the green flag is not one of them. But I ticked that box tonight. So I ran it wide, coming out of Club Corner, and picked up the slowdown there. So I had to serve that, and that was a very, very painful one. And then self-inflicted recovery isn't particularly heroic, but I think the race went pretty well from there.
Yep, certainly. Once again, you've jumped quite a few people through the pit stop phase, and that's somewhere that you trick guys really seem to focus on. But when you had to make passes out on track, where was your favorite hunting ground?
I didn't have to make too many, but it was typically wherever there was a mistake from the preceding corner. So I think I made one down the Wellington straight on Davison, who made that a lot easier than I would have. And then I think there was one into Cops down at the end of the hangar straight on Cam. So I think they were the only ones I really got a pass on. Oh, and then there was the old turn 1 on Jackson when he went wide. But again, they all were brewed from mistakes at the previous corner.
And driving the BMW M8, is there any adjustments you need to make when the track temperature is this hot? Is it shifting the balance of the car towards oversteer? Because that's certainly what it looked like from the outside for a lot of drivers.
Yeah, the car naturally did have a loose rear end, but it seemed to calm down a little bit in the cooler conditions compared to the 50-degree qualifying we had. But overall, the car was pretty adaptable, so it was not really too much to complain about.
Well, congratulations on moving back up through the field, 5th place, and congratulations to your team on the team's championship and the drivers' championship once again.
Yeah, certainly want to congratulate Alex on an amazing season. I'm really pleased for him, and it was exactly the way I wanted it to end. So I said at the end of last season, look out for one of the other guys to hold the charge, and Alex stepped up to the plate and did an amazing job. So congrats to Alex, and thanks again to GT Leagues Australia for hosting another amazing series, and for Epiroc for being the series sponsor.
Alex has already told us the trick sponsors, but real quick, anything else you need to get off your chest?
Definitely all the telemetry help with Peter Jasinowicz. He's really helped us all the last few weeks in fine-tuning the setups and fine-tuning our driving line. So a huge thanks to him.
Well, there we go. I'll throw it back over to you, Reese.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us in the commentary box for an interview tonight. Certainly a great way to cap off what was a great season of Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. And this is what's upcoming on SimSpeed. We, of course, have the Michelin Pilot Challenge, the Audi TCR at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, tentatively tomorrow night at 21:20 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. AOSC at Lime Rock Park on Friday. That is going to be a lot of fun. And of course, we've got the official iRacing V8 series at Lime Rock Park on Monday night. Just send it on Tuesday. And next Sunday, we come to the penultimate round of VRS V8 Scops. I'm looking forward to that for sure. But if GT racing is your thing, do not fear. This season may be over, but we do still have the Epiroc summer season coming up. Starting on the 12th of December, Sebring in the GTEs. Make sure that you are there. Big thanks to Epiroc for their support of this series. It was great to have you on board, and certainly it was a fantastic show put on by all the drivers over the course of this season. A big thank you to the field and to the teams as well, and to you, the spectators. It was fantastic having you along for this amazing ride with us. That brings to an end this season of Sprint Series Australia. I've been Reese Gardner. That's been David Haynes alongside me. From us here at SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network, it's bye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Below This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what? This is the original esport racing game.